You thought rest would come with retirement, that once the calendar emptied out and the alarm stopped ringing, you'd finally feel like yourself again. That slow mornings, quiet afternoons, and fewer responsibilities would bring ease. But something happened, or rather, something didn't. The tiredness didn't leave. You wake up, and your bones are still heavy. Your thoughts still fog over in the middle of a conversation. Your body moves slowly, not the peaceful kind of slow, but the dragging kind. And some days, you wonder, how did I ever work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? I can barely make it through breakfast without needing to sit back down. No one warned you that retirement could come with its own kind of exhaustion. The kind that doesn't come from doing too much, but from things you can't quite name. You're not rushing from meeting to meeting. You're not raising children. You're not running out the door with coffee in one hand and your phone in the other. But somehow, your energy feels fractured, dull, like a light bulb that still works, but not at full brightness. And here's the truth, one that almost no one talks about out loud. Retirement doesn't guarantee rest. In fact, for many people, it quietly reveals a different kind of fatigue. A deeper one that's been building up over years, but got masked by the busyness of life. Now that the pace has slowed, you can hear it, feel it, like background noise that was always there, but now it's the only thing in the room. That's what this conversation is about. Not sleep, not vitamins, not another list of things you should be doing, but something gentler, something more honest. Because real exhaustion in retirement isn't just physical. It lives in your thoughts, in the roles you never stop playing, in the tension you hold in your jaw when you sit alone too long, in the invisible weight you carry when the house is quiet and you're not sure who you are without a title, a task, or a reason to rush. Over the next few minutes, we're going to walk slowly through 3 quiet forces that may be draining your energy without you realizing it. They're not dramatic, they're not new, but they work quietly in the background, like programs running on a computer that hasn't been shut down in years. And they can leave you tired, even on the calmest of days. We'll begin with the most hidden one, the one that slips in without warning. It doesn't come from a body, but from the mind, a kind of overstimulation that never really ends, not because the world is loud, but because your thoughts never get a place to rest. Let's start there, where the noise lives, even in silence. There's a strange kind of tiredness that settles in when the mind doesn't get to stop. You might not be doing much, physically. You might even look relaxed from the outside. But inside, the wheels keep turning. Not fast, not frantic, just constantly. A quiet mental hum that never seems to power down. You think about the bills, the doctor's appointment, the friend you haven't called back. You remember something you forgot to do last week, even though it doesn't matter anymore. You wonder if you said the right thing to your son on the phone yesterday. You replay a conversation from 3 months ago. You list groceries in your head, and then list them again. It's not anxiety, not in the loud, spiraling way. It's something subtler, a brain that never leaves on. After retirement, many people expect their minds to relax. But what often happens instead is that the external structure is gone. No deadlines, no schedule, no to-do lists, and the internal noise gets louder. There's no longer a job to hold your focus. No daily rhythm to give your mind somewhere to land. So it floats, hovers, circles, always just a little on, even when the body is still. And over time, that kind of constant low-level thinking becomes exhausting. The brain wasn't meant to hold every open tab forever. It needs pause. It needs pockets of unstructured silence. Not the kind filled with TV noise or background scrolling, but the kind where the mind is allowed to soften. Allowed to be empty for a little while. Not asleep, just not in charge. But for many, that kind of pause feels unfamiliar, even unsafe, especially after decades of solving, fixing, proving, managing, remembering. There's a sense that you're wasting time if you're not using your mind to figure something out. But here's the quiet truth. Sometimes your brain is tired not from doing too little, but from never being given permission to stop. Ellen, 71, told me she started taking 10 minutes each afternoon to sit without her phone, without reading, without music. At first, I hated it, she said. I felt like I should be doing something. But then something unexpected happened. My shoulders dropped. My thoughts slowed. I felt rested, even though I hadn't napped. Like someone had turned off a faucet I didn't realize was running. Mental fatigue doesn't go away with more information. It goes away with less. Less noise, less input, less problem solving. Sometimes the most restorative thing you can do isn't meditation or mindfulness or any formal practice at all. It's just sitting with your breath and not needing to make use of the moment. Because a mind that always feels useful never learns how to feel at ease. And when your thoughts stop gripping everything so tightly, your body notices. You might sleep better, digest better, react more gently, move more freely, because your mind isn't commanding every muscle to brace for the next thing. That softening opens the door to the next kind of tiredness. One that has nothing to do with how much you think, but with the roles you've silently kept playing even after the world stopped asking you to. Sometimes, the heaviest weight isn't the task itself, but the identity you haven't yet allowed yourself to lay down. Some roles never get an official end date. There's no retirement party for being the strong one. No ceremony when you stop being the fixer. No applause when you quietly stop carrying everyone else's needs before your own. Those roles, they linger. They slip into your posture, into the way you answer the phone, into the way you check in on people before they check in on you. They follow you even after the job ends, after the children are grown, after the caregiving stops being daily and turns into something softer, less visible. And this is another kind of exhaustion no one prepares you for. The kind that doesn't come from what you're doing now, but from what you've done for so long that it's shaped who you think you are. The provider, the problem solver, the one who keeps it all together, the one who says, "I'm fine," even when you're not. The one who remembers birthdays, the one who picks up the pieces quietly so others don't have to. You don't carry these roles with pride anymore. You carry them out of habit. And sometimes you carry them out of fear. If I stop being useful, who am I? If I say no, will they still call? If I let go, will I disappear? What no one tells you is that these invisible roles are draining. Not in one moment, not all at once, but like a slow leak. You wake up tired, even after a good night's sleep. You move through the day carrying a weight you can't quite name. You don't have a job title anymore, but the job never ended. It just changed shape. And part of healing, part of truly resting, is giving yourself permission to stop being everything to everyone. To let your worth be measured in presence, not performance. To allow quiet to be enough. To let care be mutual, not one-sided. Margaret, 73, told me she realized this after her daughter stopped by one afternoon and asked why she looked so tired. I didn't know how to answer, she said. I hadn't done much that day, but I had been worrying about her, and about my sister, and about the bills. And I realized I was still holding everyone's lives in my head, like I used to when they were little. But they're not little anymore. Sometimes the body can't relax because the mind is still in roll mode, still anticipating needs, still watching for cracks to fill. And when you stay in that state long enough, your body doesn't know the difference between doing the task and thinking about the task. It stays tight, alert, exhausted. But you can begin to lay those roles down, gently, one thought at a time. You can remind yourself, they're okay without me managing everything. I'm allowed to rest now. I'm still loved when I'm not needed. And from that gentler inner voice, something begins to shift. Your muscles start to release. Your expectations soften. You stop bracing for the next call, the next ask, the next little emergency that never comes. And that release brings us closer to the final kind of fatigue. One that's not about what you carry mentally or emotionally, but what you stop doing physically. Because sometimes what drains us most is not tension, but the absence of movement. Not doing too much, but doing too little for too long. And the body, like the mind, begins to dim. Quietly, reluctantly, but not irreversibly. They're the kind of tired that doesn't come from doing too much, but from not doing enough. Not because you're lazy, not because you've given up, but because the rhythms that once carried your body, getting up, going out, standing, lifting, reaching, walking, have slowly faded. And in their absence, your muscles don't hurt, but they do grow quiet. The joints don't scream, but they do stiffen. The breath doesn't collapse, but it stops expanding. And little by little, without any big injury or illness, your energy begins to retreat. You don't feel weak. You just don't feel alive. This is the third and most overlooked cause of post-retirement exhaustion: the slow disconnection from the body's need to move. Not to burn calories, not to lose weight, just to wake up. Your body isn't tired because it's old. It's tired because it's been still. And stillness, when it becomes the default rather than the pause, begins to weigh more heavily than any task ever could. The body is a system of flow: blood, lymph, air, thought. And flow doesn't return just because you stretch once or take a walk every other weekend. It returns with attention, rhythm, repetition, not discipline, not perfection, just consistent, loving re-entry into movement, however small. Reaching a little farther when you grab your mug, rolling your ankles before standing up, circling your wrists at the sink, moving with breath, not urgency. Paul, 75, shared how he felt tired all day despite doing nothing. He thought he was resting, but his rest was actually stagnation, a physical kind of silence that slowly made his mind feel foggy and his spirit heavy. "I started walking up and down the hallway twice a day," he said. "That's it." But within a week, it was like the lights came back on. Because the body doesn't ask for a workout plan. It asks to be remembered, to be used, to be invited into the day. And when it is, something returns, not just strength, but clarity, vitality, a sense of "I'm still in here." And no, it doesn't reverse everything. It doesn't erase the aches or restore the joints of youth, but it changes the quality of your energy. You stop dragging. You start circulating. Your breath deepens. Your spine straightens. Your eyes feel brighter, not because you've pushed yourself, but because you finally plug yourself back in. So if you've been feeling exhausted and you can't quite explain why, this might be it. Not illness, not sleep, but inactivity disguised as rest. The kind of stillness that feels soft, but over time becomes suffocating. And once you begin to move again, even gently, you'll likely notice something else. Your thoughts slow down. Your rolls become quieter. Your body starts to hum, not loudly, but steadily, like a home that's been dark for a while, and someone just flipped the lights back on. Now that we've named these three sources: mental overdrive, emotional roll fatigue, and physical stillness, let's gather them. In the final parts of this story, we'll bring it together gently. Not with solutions, but with compassion. Because rest, the kind that truly restores, only comes after recognition. And you're already halfway there. It's easy to blame the fatigue on age. Easy to shrug and say, well, this is just how it is now. But when you sit with it longer, when you listen, you begin to realize this exhaustion isn't random. It has a rhythm, a texture. It's not just one thing, it's everything layered. A mind that never powers down. A heart that still carries what it no longer has to. A body that's fallen silent, not out of choice, but neglect. And when those three currents run side by side, mental strain, emotional weight, and physical stillness, they start to sound like one low hum that never stops. A fatigue that lives in the background of everything. Even on quiet days, even when you sleep well, even when nothing dramatic is happening. The mistake people often make is to treat each piece in isolation. They try to fix the sleep, or drink more coffee, or take another supplement. But the tiredness that settles in after retirement isn't a single problem to fix. It's a pattern that needs unwinding. And it begins not with effort, but with awareness. It begins when you pause in the middle of a slow afternoon, place your hand over your chest, and whisper, not out loud, but in truth, "I'm carrying too much for this to be a peaceful season." It begins when you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What parts of me have I been ignoring?" Because real rest doesn't come from doing nothing. It comes from being with yourself fully, without tension, without the need to be useful, without the weight of roles you no longer have to play. That might look like starting the day with 3 deep breaths, eyes closed, hands warm around a mug, doing nothing but sitting in the light. It might look like moving your body not because it hurts, but because you remember it used to feel good. It might look like saying no to a visit you're too tired for, not with guilt, but with grace. And slowly, As the nervous system stops bracing, the mind begins to quiet. The shoulders drop. The thoughts stop spinning. The breath deepens not because you're trying, but because you're no longer defending. From what? From the expectation to always be doing, always be holding, always be needed. Harold, 68, told me, I didn't realize I hadn't stopped in 50 years. Not really stopped. I retired, but I was still moving inside like there was a fire I had to keep putting out. What changed for him wasn't a vacation. It was an afternoon. One still, ordinary afternoon where he gave himself permission to just be. No list, no noise, just a chair, a breeze, and the radical act of unclenching. This is where rest begins, not in sleep, but in softening, in peeling back the layers, in seeing that you're not tired because you're older. You're tired because you've gone too long without tending to yourself the way you once tended to everyone else. And that brings us home. In this last stretch, we won't solve the tiredness, but we'll name what so many carry. We'll walk, slowly, towards something softer than a solution, something more lasting, a kind of rest that isn't given, it's remembered. Rest isn't something that arrives when the world slows down. It arrives when you slow down on the inside, not because you're told to, not because someone else gives you permission, but because at some point you decide, I don't want to live clenched anymore. You realize that tiredness isn't your enemy. It's a message, a whisper from the parts of you that have been carrying too much for too long. Your brain that never quiets, even when the house is silent. Your heart that never stops holding, even when no one asks. Your body that's been still for so many days, it forgets what it feels like to sway, to stretch, to breathe deeply without a reason. You were never meant to stay in those roles forever. Never meant to hold every thread in everyone's life. Never meant to stay productive, to be worthy. There is no finish line left to reach. There's only this version of you in this chapter with everything you've already given, already survived, already built. And what you need now is not more doing, not more fixing, not even more understanding. What you need is the courage to rest. Not nap, not distract, not disconnect, but rest, the kind that allows you to take up space without explanation. The kind that says, this moment doesn't need me to perform. It just needs me to be. That's how the healing begins. Not in grand changes, but in little shifts. Letting the dishes sit in the sink. Letting your mind wander without pulling it back. Moving your feet without a purpose. Being with a friend without needing to solve anything. Placing your hand over your chest and remembering that you belong, even when you're not giving anything away. Gloria, 72, told me she used to end every day with a sense of guilt. I didn't do enough, she'd say. But now, she finishes her days with something else. A warm tea, a gentle stretch, a moment by the window, and a sentence she repeats to herself like a prayer. I did enough. I am enough. And tomorrow can come quietly. So if you're feeling tired and you can't explain it, maybe now you can. Maybe you're not broken. Maybe you've just been carrying thoughts that never got to land, playing roles that never got to close, sitting still in a body that's been asking to move again. And maybe, just maybe, your tiredness isn't asking for more effort. Maybe it's asking for softness, for presence, for your own kind attention. Let this be the start of that. Thank you for being here. If you saw yourself in any part of this story, share it in the comments. We read every word. If this video helped you feel understood, or just a little less alone like it, subscribe. Stay with us. There's more waiting ahead, more ways to feel like yourself again, one breath, one release, one true rest at a time.